Hey guys, my name is Nick, and today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a WordPress website from a freshly installed CentOS Linux virtual machine. Here I made a GitHub repository, which should be pretty easy to follow. I'm not going to be starting from step 1 because I go in depth on how to set up virtualization for your motherboard, but we're going to be skipping to step 4, assuming that you've already enabled virtualization on your system. So if you haven't enabled virtualization, I recommend going to the GitHub repository and following my instructions. That or just Googling it and seeing what you can find. So firstly, we're going to need to get VMware. I provide a link at the top of the GitHub repository, and I'll also leave it in the description. You're going to want to choose the one for your operating system, so Windows, download. This is directly from the VMware website. Yada yada yada, and then we're also going to need CentOS. So I'm going with CentOS 7. I tried this method with CentOS 8, but I kept getting an error with VMware, and I found a workaround, but it was like too complicated, so I'm just going to go with CentOS 7. Now we're going to be going with a minimal version of CentOS. So there's no GUI, it's just a command line. But once you have those two downloaded, these two, we can set that up. So we're just gonna leave the raw footage, so if I come across anything you guys can see, that just popped up on my other monitor and asked me for administrative access. But we're gonna go through the installation wizard for VMware. Keeps going to my other monitor. It's annoying. Alright, next. Agree to that. I don't care about that. No thanks. I will make a desktop shortcut and then install. That shouldn't take too long. So I neglect to remember if I said this already, but at the bottom of the GitHub repository, I also show how to make this website public. So what we're doing is we're making it private, and it's going to be a local web server on your machine, and it won't be able to be accessed over the internet, but you can access it if someone's on your local area network. There's a YouTube video in the repository that shows how to make it public, and then I also supply some security warnings for using WordPress, which I can go over while we're installing the actual box itself. So I actually use a script. That's why we're using this GitHub repository. I made a script that goes through everything. You don't have to type individual commands because there's quite a few. So you can just scroll through that. I don't know. I could explain what this does line by line, but I feel like I don't necessarily need to do that. Since this is raw footage, I might end up just doing it eventually. But so VMware has installed. We're gonna boot that baby up. Now, since this is a raw footage video, it's going to be a little bit longer than my other ones. I actually already have one because I was testing it out. We're going to delete that. So, create a new virtual machine. I'm going to click here on installer disk image ISO file. And then we're going to find the ISO file that we want, CentOS 7 minimal. Next, I like calling it website. Next, 20 gigs is fine. And then finish. The defaults are good for what we have now. If you need to add more, say, disk space later on, you can do that in settings. Install CentOS. You have to use your arrow keys in return to do that. I don't need VMware tools, so I'm not going to do that right now. So while this is doing that, I'm just gonna explain, well, maybe not line for line, but basically this takes in user input to get a username and password for your database that gets stored in a variable, and it replaces that in one of the WordPress configuration files, which connects the WordPress to the database that we're going to be setting up later. And then we're installing a few packages, HTTPD, for the actual like running it on port 80 and all that, HTTP. Then we start the service. Now we can set this up. I'll continue later, but in the installation we have to do a few things. First you have to wait for this to load a little bit. There we go. Click here, just click done. Make sure that the right installation disk is chosen, and then you're also going to want to go to network. You want to turn on your Ethernet, because this will connect you to the internet, and we won't be able to grab the repository from GitHub if we're not connected to the internet. Press done, begin installation. Now we can make a root user. I'm just going to have a terrible password. Just hit done twice if it's a terrible password. And now it's going to be installing for a good while. While we do that, I'm going to finish explaining what's going on. We're installing MariaDB, which is a database manager. Installing MySQL stuffs. Install PHP, the latest repositories for PHP, and then installing that stuff, replacing our repos for that. We restart HTTPD with any of the settings that we configured up there. We set some firewall rules to enable services HTTP and HTTPS. Then we reload the firewall because we make changes. Then we log into the MySQL database, and then from there we're actually going to be typing in some SQL commands. That's the only real effort you have to put in, but it's not too bad. I'm probably going to end up modifying it so it does it automatically later, but I haven't gotten that right now. Then we get the latest version of WordPress, which is going to be what our website is run off of, and then unzip it, move the files to the file directory in our file system that pertains to port 80 and displaying websites. And then we create an uploads folder, and then we change the permissions, and then we send the config file that we altered with the database credentials. So it's not a whole lot going on, but it's a lot better that I've scripted this and you don't have to type each and every individual one out, in which case a lot of mistakes could be made and I'd get a lot more questions that way, and I don't feel like answering a billion questions for a billion different possible mistakes. So I made this as error-proof as I possibly can. This is still performing post-installation setup tasks, but that's fine. Let's see. I'm going to show you. There was a where is this? Or I'm going to find this off screen. This installation should be almost done. CentOS 8 error on line 31. Pain is dead. Yeah, so oof. So there was this this error, which is a oh, did they fix it recently? Last updated. No? Huh. But what you had to do is you had to create an empty VM without an OS, start the VM, and then change the settings to read from the CentOS image. And then you had to restart it. And it was like a whole hassle, and I didn't want to explain that in a YouTube video. But I guess I'm doing that now. But I'm not showing you that whole process, so that's probably for the best. I guess I can also go over security warnings and stuff. So WordPress, I'm just going to read this word by word. So WordPress has a reputation for having dangerously insecure plugins and features. But luckily there are security measures you can implement to help mitigate any potential risks. And if you don't believe me, if you go to the exploit database, you look at just the front page. Let's see, WordPress time capsule plugin authentication bypass, WordPress infinite WP client authentication bypass. And you can just keep going, and there's just WordPress everywhere. So things to mitigate that: keep your WordPress up to date, including your themes and your plugins. Because WordPress by itself isn't bad. It's just when you start implementing plugins and themes from like unsupported places, that's where you get vulnerabilities and stuff. Use two-factor authentication where you can. Use strong passwords. Use reputable security plugins like WordFence and iTheme Security. They're all very good. I highly recommend both of them. Just make sure to keep them up to date. And then only use trusted plugins and themes. That goes along with the first one. And then use SFTP for file transfer. This is FTP, but with a encryption layer. It's like mixed with SSL, so it's very good. And then there's a video that talks about that. That's where I get these as recommendation. And I'm surprised this is still going. So I guess technically this is a 16-step process if you include the enabling of virtualization. I might just cut this until something happens. I don't know. I'll just continue to read things off of the GitHub repository. So CentOS is a distribution of the Linux operating system. CentOS was developed by Red Hat. Oop, it's done. Developed by Red Hat Enterprise, which is a distinguished software development company. If you want, you can pay Red Hat for 5 years of support services, which will provide you with some very good all-around the clock technical assistance and support. Linux, on the other hand, is a operating system derived from the Unix operating system, just like Mac OS X. Don't get misconstrued. The only real similarity between Mac OS X and Linux is the command line. If you have any experience with Unix-based command lines, it will be very helpful, which is true. So we're going to log in. The password that we assigned before, the bad one, that was for our root user. So you just type in root, then type in our password. That is very bad. I could go into it. I can explain why it's bad later in another video, but right now we're fine. So first I'm going to test that we can access the internet. So we're going to ping Google, and that's fine. We got a 0% packet loss. So now all we need to do is, I'm going to do this, boop, boop. All we're going to do is type these commands. So we're technically at step 12 right now. So we're going to install Git, and I'm going to not put that in quiet mode so you can see the installation process. And I did finish installing. All right. This says cd that, but we're already in that directory, so we should be fine. And my least favorite thing about CentOS is it makes a really loud beeping noise at you whenever you do something that it doesn't like. So what this command does is we're making a directory. If we list our current directory, we can see that it's there. Change directory to it. Now we can do a git clone http s://github.com/nickranger44. What a terrible username. blogscript.git. And now if we list our current directory, it's right there. We can change directory right into that by doing cd again. All right, now we're going to do chmod +x and getblog.sh. This makes the script executable. You can see because now it's green. And now to execute this, we do ./getblog.sh, and then we run it. So it asks for username. We're going to type in user. Our password is going to be pass. I'd recommend using your own username and password, not something as vulnerable as user and pass. But this is going to automatically do all the stuff that we want. Now, MariaDB is going to want root password. For whatever reason, even if you already have a root password set up, it wants you to make a new one. So just press return for none, and then press Y to set a root password. You can set it exactly the same as we did when we were installing CentOS. In which case, it was my very bad password that I keep talking about. Remove anonymous users, just press return through these, and we're good. Now it's just going to continue until it logs us into SQL. Looks like there's no match argument for PHP, but that's fine. Right now it's just installing all the PHP stuff, which should take a lot of time because it's a lot of packages. Not all of the PHP packages are actually necessary, but I included them just in case. I assume that we're almost at the stage where we get to put in our password. Yep, okay. Now the password that we just typed in earlier in the script, I'm just going to type that in again. Now we're going to have to type in some SQL, which I have right here. It is caps sensitive, so be wary of that. Database, WordPress, semicolon, create user, and then we put what we did earlier, which was user identified by pass. So the username and password that we made at the beginning of the script. And I'm going to grant all privileges on WordPress .star to user identified by pass, semicolon. So basically we created a database and we created a user, and we're giving that user all privileges on that database. Then flush privileges, semicolon, and then exit. And now it should continue with the installation of WordPress, and then it should move all the files to the correct spot. And now at this point, we can type in IPadder to get our local IP address. And I'm going to get my mouse back. And as you can see, the 192.168.8.128. Don't look for the one that says 127.0.0.1. Look for the one that kind of looks like this. I don't know how to explain that to anyone who's not a techie, but yeah, look for the one next to there. I don't know. So once you find that, we're going to look that up. So 192.168.8.128. Search that up. And now we should see a page like this. Continue, and then we can just set up our website. I'm not going to show you how to do this. You can go to another tutorial for that because this video is already about 20 minutes long. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, thanks for watching. My name is Nick. Peace.